Picture this, a house that has not had its windows opened in 3 years. Inside, the air is stale, the rooms feel heavy. Everything is still in place, furniture where it has always been, pictures still hanging on the wall, nothing technically broken, but something about it feels off. It feels tight. It feels like the walls have slowly learned how to close in, and the strange part is that the people inside that house have gotten used to it. They move around carefully. They know where to sit, where not to sit, what not to touch. They have adjusted so well to the lack of fresh air that they almost forget what fresh air was supposed to feel like. Now imagine one day someone walks toward a window, just one window, their hand reaches for the latch, and right before they open it, they pause because something in them hesitates. Not because they do not want change, but because the body remembers what the mind has tried to forget. It remembers disappointment, it remembers pain. It remembers what happened the last time something new was allowed in. And so in that small, quiet moment, they wonder if opening the window might make things worse instead of better. That moment is what we are talking about today, because many people are living their lives inside that exact pause, that exact hesitation between what is familiar and what could be better. And without even realizing it, they have made that pause their entire way of living. Welcome back. It is good to have you here again. Whether this is your first time listening or you have been here before, I want you to know this is a space where we slow things down enough to be honest. Where we do not pretend that everything is fine just because life expects us to smile through it. I am glad you chose to be here today. Truly, let us get into it. Today is about something simple on the surface but deeply layered when you sit with it. It is about letting light in after a long time in the dark. Not just light in the poetic sense, but the actual act of opening yourself up again after life has taught you to stay closed, because at some point, many people stop opening their windows. Not physically, but emotionally, mentally, internally, they stop letting new experiences fully reach them. They stop letting people fully see them. They stop letting hope settle in too long because hope has disappointed them before, and without realizing it, they start living in survival mode without an exit plan. So today we are looking at 3 things: what it really means to survive versus what it means to truly live. Why vulnerability became something so many people fear, even though it is one of the most natural human needs. And finally, what small steps actually look like when you decide you are ready to open a window again. Stay with me. Because there is a point in this conversation that might sit quietly with you long after this ends. Let us start here. For many people, life has been reduced to getting through the day. Wake up, function, respond, solve problems, meet expectations, sleep, repeat. There is nothing wrong with being responsible. There is nothing wrong with being strong. But somewhere along the line, strength stopped being something you move through and became something you are trapped inside. Surviving looks like constantly managing yourself, managing your emotions, managing your reactions, managing your expectations so you are not disappointed again. It looks like lowering your desire for more so you are not hurt by the absence of more. You start to say things like, at least I am okay, at least I am not worse off, at least I am still here, and those statements are not wrong, they are protective. They come from a place that has learned to stay alert in order to stay safe, but survival has a hidden cost. It slowly convinces you that this is all there is. Thriving, on the other hand, is not just about success or achievement. It is not about having everything perfect. It is something quieter and deeper. It is the ability to feel present in your own life without bracing for impact all the time. It is waking up and not immediately scanning your mind for problems. It is having moments where your body is not in tension for no reason. It is being able to receive good things without waiting for them to disappear. And for many people, that version of life feels distant, not because it is impossible, but because they have been surviving for so long that anything beyond survival feels unfamiliar. This is why the window stays closed, because even though the air inside is heavy, it is familiar, and familiarity can feel safer than change, even when it is uncomfortable. But I want to ask you something gently. Are you still in a season that requires you to keep everything closed, or have you just gotten used to living without fresh air? That question matters more than it seems, because survival is meant to protect you, not define you. It is meant to carry you through difficult seasons, not become the structure of your entire life. Now let us talk about something most people avoid: vulnerability. For many people, that word feels like danger. It feels like exposure. It feels like giving someone access to something they might misuse, and honestly, that fear makes sense, because a lot of people learned early that openness was not always met with care. They shared something honest and it was used against them. They trusted someone and it was dismissed. They expressed emotion and it was minimized, so they adapted. They learned to stay guarded, to stay composed, to stay in control. But somewhere in that learning, something got distorted, because vulnerability itself is not what caused harm, the absence of the right environment did. Being open is not the same as being unsafe. It only becomes painful when it is placed in the wrong hands. At its core, vulnerability is simply honesty without armor. It is the willingness to be seen without editing yourself into something more acceptable, and here is what is often missed. Every meaningful human connection you have ever had required vulnerability in some form. Every moment where you felt understood, every time you felt emotionally close to someone. Every time you felt less alone in your experience, that only happened because something real was shared and something real was received. There's a release that happens when you finally say the thing you have been holding in. It does not just feel emotional, it feels physical. Like your body finally exhales after holding its breath for too long, that is not imagination, that is your nervous system responding to relief. It is the body recognizing that it is not carrying everything alone anymore, but let us be clear, not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Part of emotional maturity is discernment. Knowing where to speak, when to speak, and who has shown they can handle what you carry. You do not open every window at once, you open carefully, slowly, intentionally. Still, the principle remains the same. Healing does not happen in complete isolation. At some point, something has to be witnessed. Even if that witness is not a person, it could be reflection. It could be writing, it could be prayer, it could be a safe community. But the weight was never meant to stay entirely unseen forever. Now let us bring this into something practical. Because understanding is not enough if it does not translate into movement. So where do you begin? Start with naming what you have been carrying. Most people skip this part. They feel overwhelmed but cannot explain why. They feel heavy but cannot identify the source. So everything stays inside as one large unnamed feeling. But when you begin to name things, even quietly, something shifts. You might say, I have been carrying disappointment from how things turned out. I have been carrying fear about repeating past mistakes. I have been carrying sadness I have not fully acknowledged. You are not trying to solve it yet, you are only giving it shape. And what has shape can be understood. The next step is choosing one place where openness feels safe enough to try, not everywhere, not with everyone, just one space. One person who has shown consistency, one practice that helps you reflect, one environment where you do not feel like you have to perform strength, and you start small. You do not tell your whole story at once, you share a piece, a small truth, something manageable, then you observe what happens. Not every outcome will be perfect, but each attempt gives your nervous system new information. It learns that openness does not always lead to danger. It learns that you can be seen and still remain intact. That learning is slow, but it is real, and over time it changes how you relate to connection. Then comes something even deeper. You begin to allow yourself to want more. This is where many people get stuck without realizing it. It is not that they cannot change. It is that they do not allow themselves to imagine change without fear. They lower expectations so disappointment cannot reach them. They shrink desires so longing does not hurt. They convince themselves that what they have is enough, not because it feels true, but because it feels safer. But healing asks something different from you. It asks you to want again. Not in a desperate way, in an honest way, to want peace that is not temporary, to want relationships that feel safe, to want mornings that do not feel heavy. To want a version of yourself that is not constantly surviving, because you cannot move toward a life you refuse to imagine, so allow it, even if it feels unfamiliar, even if it feels risky. Let yourself want something more than maintenance. Now imagine that same house again, the person standing by the window, still hesitant, still unsure, but this time they do something different. They open it just a little and nothing dramatic happens. No collapse, no chaos, no sudden transformation, just air, just movement, just the quiet realization that the inside of the room is changing. And for the first time in a long time, they are not only existing inside it, they are breathing inside it. That is what this journey looks like, not dramatic, not instant, but steady. One window at a time, one moment of honesty at a time, one small decision to let something new in. So here is my invitation to you: do not rush yourself, do not force yourself. But also do not abandon yourself in survival forever. If this spoke to you in any way, stay connected to this space. Reflect on what you are carrying, write it down, say it out loud somewhere safe. Share it if you are ready, and most importantly, ask yourself one simple question. What is one window I am willing to open this week? Not everything, just one. Because sometimes that is all it takes for the air to start changing.